What's happening, guys? Back at you with the nerd video. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking each one of the Batman movies from worst to best. So let's get to it. So with another Batman movie released in theaters, I decided to go ahead and do this video since I haven't actually done a ranking video for the Batman movie. So this is specifically going to be theatrical released Batman movies. This is not going to be like any other Batman movies that weren't really released in theaters, or like, any of the animated movies really. This is going to be specifically what released theatrically. It had theatrical run in theaters. So let's go ahead and get down this list. So earlier before the video though, I did put up a poll on my Instagram, and sometimes I do put polls on my Instagram for people to vote on stuff for like video type stuff or specific things and videos that I want to try to do. So I did put a poll on my actual Instagram, and I'll try to leave a link to that if you want to check that out, my Instagram, and vote on future polls that I do on my Instagram page. So the poll that I put up was if I should include Justice League movie from 2017, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and also Batman v Superman. And the poll voted, after voting on the poll, a majority of people had said yes to include those movies. So I will be including those three movies also within this ranking. So let's go ahead and get started with this ranking. At the bottom of the list, we're going to go with Justice League 2017, aka Justice League, primarily directed by Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon, if y'all familiar with the story, Joss Whedon did come in after Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder tragically had to leave the project due to a family event, and Joss Whedon came in, and pretty much what happened was what they had to do for Joss Whedon to get credit for directing was they had to reshoot a majority of the movie, cut scenes and stuff like that. So originally Zack Snyder had a vision that this movie was, it was going to be pretty long. We later got Zack Snyder's vision, thankfully later on. But Zack Snyder's vision was pretty much cut to shreds in this movie, and they brought Joss Whedon in to like finish it and help direct it and finish some of the stuff in there. So they literally cut they literally cut Zack Snyder's vision to under a 2-hour movie. So there and that was a pretty poor decision on their part on doing that, trying to cut this long movie that Zack Snyder had vision, and this team up movie that really should use more than 2 hours to get through stuff. They literally cut it to shreds, reshot some things. Joss Whedon came in, did different things with it and stuff like that, and literally put it under 2 hours. So it was literally ripped to shreds. Zack Snyder's vision was ripped to shreds, and it was shown when people went to go see it. A lot of people did not enjoy it or didn't like it really that much. So that is why it's on the bottom of the list for me. All right, moving on. Next one is going to be this one. Y'all know it's going to be on the bottom probably. Batman and Robin starring George Clooney. So the thing with Batman and Robin is I saw it when I was a kid. I enjoyed it as a kid. And let me make one thing straight though. While I was getting ready to make this list, I have seen each one of these movies. I rewatched them over the past couple weeks, so I do have a fresh mind on all these movies and how I ranked them so far. So I have a fresh mind since I've been watching all of them for the past couple weeks, rewatching them and all that stuff for the past couple weeks, and have a fresh mind on this list. So when I rewatch Batman and Robin, of course, it hits some of the nostalgia stuff if you watch it as a kid. But let's face it, this movie was a horrible Batman movie. And it's not really the cast. Like, it had a great cast. They had a great director and all that. It's just like just the wrong movie. Just the wrong things happened in this movie. And I'll give props to George Clooney. In a way, he does play, not necessarily in this movie. I'm not gonna say this movie, but he can play a great Bruce Wayne, in my opinion, just by the way he acts normally in other movies, or like just the way he acts in general, in life and stuff like that. If y'all familiar with stuff like that, he could play a good Bruce Wayne, actually. But the way they went with this movie was a lot of things going wrong. Just ice puns and just puns galore in this movie, and just I don't know, just something. And also too, some of the cast members have even gone on to apologize for his movie. That's how much they know it was bad. Like the director has apologized, George Clooney has apologized. Chris O'Donnell has even said that he felt like he was shooting a toy commercial or a merchandise commercial for his movie, and that's basically almost what it was. Like they were trying to sell toys and sell merchandise for this movie, and it's like that's basically how it felt. There was selling toys and merchandise, trying to film this movie and stuff like that. You know, be out there and stuff, selling stuff. So that's how this movie did come across, and it just turned out bad for Batman character in a bad Batman movie. So I need I say more. Y'all know what happened. All right, going on to the next movie on this list is going to be the Lego Batman. Now I know a lot of people like this movie, and I do like it somewhat. I did rewatch it, and I did enjoy it for the most part. But I don't know, just something about it. It's more of a family kind of kid friendly take on a Batman character. You know, especially with the use of Legos, and it wasn't really for me. Like I kind of liked it. You know, it was alright. It was here, okay here and there, but like I don't think I was the target audience for this. This was definitely made for kids and maybe a family type movie, but I definitely probably wasn't the target audience for this movie. But that's why I put it on this list. It wasn't a bad movie or anything, but I couldn't put it higher on the list because I didn't enjoy it as much as the other movies, but still not a bad movie. All right, next up on the list is one I actually watched. I think this was actually the second time I actually watched this one. I remember watching it as a kid, but I don't really remember it much. So like I had to rewatch it and get a sense of how it was again. So next up on the list is going to be Batman 1966, starring Adam West. So this movie, I was actually entertained with this movie. Like I really was. I was actually entertained with this movie. And I actually enjoyed some parts of it. But the thing is, it is super campy and so much for that time that it came out in. Like it was definitely a good movie for the time that it came out in. But it nowadays, when you expect to see a Batman movie, it's like very different from what they had back then. Batman 1966 was super campy and super just out there for that time. It was good for that time, but nowadays, we expect something else from Batman. Expect something else from a Batman movie. But I will go on to say that I did actually find myself entertained watching this movie. It was, just the campiness and stuff like that. And I gotta say, Adam West does actually play a pretty good Batman and Bruce Wayne in this movie, and just some of the characters, villains that come out and stuff too. So for the most part, I wasn't entertained, but I gotta say, it was not as I didn't like it as much as other movies that were on this list. All right, moving on to the next one is going to be Batman Forever. So Val Kilmer plays Batman in this movie. Now this is my childhood Batman movie. I remember seeing this movie for the first time and having a VHS, and I literally burned out the VHS watching this movie over and over and over again as a child. This was literally my definitive Batman movie as a child, and I know a lot of people will go on to say that this is such a bad movie. This is a bad Batman movie. Yes, in some parts it is, but for me as a child and rewatching this, and like honestly I still rewatch it to this day. Like I will pop it in sometimes here and there and like literally still be entertained by it and still watch it, and it'll still hit the nostalgia notes for me because I literally watched this movie was the one I watched the most as a kid, as a young kid, during my toddler and grade school years. This is the Batman movie I watched the most, and I burned out the VHS. I remember having a VHS and literally watching it nonstop. So that is why Val Kilmer actually holds a special place as Batman. And I remember meeting him one time. It was awesome to meet him, and I got one of my Batman pops signed by him. So it was actually an awesome moment for me meeting my childhood Batman. And Val Kilmer as Batman holds such a special place for me, and that's why I, enjoy that movie so much. But and of course I definitely like the Riddler, Jim Carrey Riddler in here. But yeah, unfortunately this is not a super good Batman movie compared to other ones, but it still holds a special place for me. All right, next up on the list is going to be Batman Returns. So we got the second installment of Michael Keaton's Batman, with characters like Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, and Michelle Pfeiffer playing Catwoman. Now, this was an excellent, like, I really thought it was a great movie. But one thing that I noticed with rewatching these, especially the Tim Burton movies, was that he really likes to focus on the villains, which isn't a bad thing. The villains do have a great story going on in some of these Tim Burton movies that he has for Batman. They have good character arcs and good stories going on. But the thing is, it kind of takes away from the Batman character, and when you focus too much on the villains, and Batman doesn't really show up. I noticed that in the Tim Burton Batman movies, these two that he made, Batman is not in the movie a whole lot, honestly, and Bruce Wayne especially is not in the movie a whole lot. He does focus. I noticed that he focused more on the villains and getting with their story, showing their story, and showing their character arcs and stuff like that, which isn't a bad thing or anything. But the fact that it's a Batman movie, it kind of takes away just a little bit. This isn't a bad movie really by any means. It's honestly a good movie. It's just that compared to other ones, it doesn't make it that high up on the list for me. And rewatching it, I just noticed some things and stuff like that. I still highly enjoyed the movie and still was entertained, but it just doesn't make it all the way to high on the list for me. All right, next up, we're going to come to a movie, the only animated, or not the only animated movie, sorry, that was a mistake. I was about to say only animated movie on this list, but I forgot Lego Batman's on the list too. But let me go back to some people's quintessential Batman, which was this next movie is going to be Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So this is based on the Batman, the animated series, which a lot of people love. Still to this day, it's still talked about as one of the best Batman renditions of all time, and still talked about to this day. And I still enjoy it also too. I like watching this movie. I remember watching it when I was a young kid, and watching the Batman the animated series as a young kid also, and just seeing this movie, and then rewatching this movie. And honestly, it has such a great plot, such a great story, and it really hits the notes of things you want to see in a Batman movie, and just overall the voice acting behind it. Kevin Conroy has been one of the a lot of people say one of the best Batmans ever. Just from his voice acting and just the way he plays the character and stuff like that. And of course, we get the villain, the Phantasm, which was actually original character that was created for this movie specifically, and just the story behind it was awesome and amazing, really. And then you have the Joker come in a little bit later. Mark Hamill puts on a phenomenal performance as the Joker, as always. So honestly, this was a very great movie, and it definitely deserved to be higher up on the list. So going on to the next movie, we're going to go list off to Batman v Superman. I'm going with the Ultimate Edition, a 3 hour long edition. Specifically, I go with that edition because it's so much better than the original edition. The Ultimate Edition is adds more to it and to overall story and stuff like that. And honestly, I like this movie. Honestly, I know a lot of people don't like it because it's like really dark and gritty and stuff like that. But honestly, I was on board with what Zack Snyder was trying to do with this movie and the story he was trying to tell. And honestly, I still enjoy this movie. Still thoroughly enjoy it. I don't get to watch it as much just because it's so long, but I still enjoy it. I still enjoy it. I made some time to rewatch it, and I still enjoy watching it. I like what Zack Snyder was able to do. A couple of things here and there, story wise, and things he did in the movie, sure weren't great, but nonetheless, this overall movie and story was honestly pretty good. I still enjoy it, and I like what he did with the movie. All right, moving on to the next one on the list is going to be Batman 1989, starring Michael Keaton. Like I said before, Tim Burton with his Batman movies, there's one thing he did was focus on the villains a little bit more than Batman himself. And the focus we get in this one is Joker himself. We get a very great story arc with Joker, but very little Batman and Bruce Wayne are really in this movie. That I noticed watching these Tim Burton movies, he does like to focus on villains a little bit more, which is not a bad thing. Anything, well, it's not really a bad thing at all. But being that it's a Batman movie, you expect to see Batman a little bit more and stuff like that. But nonetheless, this was still a thoroughly entertaining movie to watch. I really did enjoy watching it. I remember I didn't really watch this one very young. I remember watching this one probably when I got around 9 or 10 years old. I think it was when I actually watched this one for the first time. And I still enjoyed it as a kid. I watched it a little bit, and then rewatching it now, I still thoroughly enjoy the movie, and it's still a pretty good movie that Tim Burton was able to do, and especially with Jack Nicholson's Joker performance was definitely pretty awesome in this movie, and still holds up today to like people saying that it's still one of the best. And a lot of people still saying that Michael Keaton is their Batman or one of the best Batman. So honestly, this movie was still pretty good after rewatching it. All right, next up on the list is going to be The Dark Knight Rises. Now, this one gets a lot of hate. I guess I can see why it gets hate, but like on the other hand, it's like I don't understand why it gets so much hate. I would say it's not necessarily the best one in the Dark Knight trilogy, but it's still a great movie. Like it's still a pretty great epic movie. Honestly, Christopher Nolan was able to tell a story and bring in Bane. When last time we saw Bane in a theatrical movie, he was done wrong, and then you bring in Christopher Nolan was able to bring in Bane this time and really add to that, and show how he's actually not that kind of character, and bring him in, and he was actually a great character in the movie and stuff, and actually breaking Batman and stuff like that, and just the way that I was able to play the story out. And honestly, I think it might not have been the most like the ending that people wanted, but honestly, it's not a bad ending to a trilogy for Batman. Or one thing with this Dark Knight trilogy is we get a beginning, middle, and an end. We see him at the beginning of before he becomes Batman. When we see him all the throughout all the movies, and then we get to the end, which is this movie. We get to the end where he's not going to be Batman no more and stuff like that. So we get a full character-driven story from beginning to end with this trilogy. And I think that this last movie, that The Dark Knight Rises, and what Christopher Nolan was able to do was he honestly told a little bit. He told a great ending to a story that we were going through 3 movies past. So I mean, I understand why it gets hate, but then on the other hand, it's like it's still a good movie. There's not too much to hate on it, but nonetheless, I put it on this list because it's a good spot for it. All right, next up on the list is going to be Batman Begins. We get the first movie in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Now, this is a great origin story, especially for Batman. This was such an amazing, great origin story for Batman. And honestly, I highly enjoy this movie. I highly enjoy this origin story. And it's such a great introduction to Batman, great introduction to Christian Bale as Batman, which I believe is one of the definitive Batmans that we get. So, honestly, Christopher Nolan, the way he kickstarts this Dark Knight trilogy with this movie was amazing and epic, in my opinion. And honestly, I still enjoy this movie. I still watch it and still highly like it, enjoy it, and still entertained by it. So honestly, great storytelling in this movie from beginning to end. The way it's just setting up his origin from before he becomes Batman all the way up until he's getting his footing as Batman. So honestly, a great story and a great movie. Next up on the list is going to be Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, this was the movie I was waiting for when it came out last year. I was waiting for Zack Snyder to finally be able to give us his vision of what he wanted for Justice League and the Justice League movie, especially after the tragedy of what happened with Justice League in 2017 when we got that movie. I was waiting for Zack Snyder to give us his vision for Justice League, and I'm glad that everybody came together, was saying we want the vision, we want Zack Snyder's version. Show it to us, let him have it, give it to us. And I'm glad that people were able to come together and rally together to be able to encourage Warner Brothers to be able to release this. And we finally got it last year, and I gotta say it's amazing, it's epic, highly enjoyed it. The only downside was that it is 4 hours long, so you have to find time, make time to watch it. But that's literally the only downside I could really see from it. I highly enjoyed this movie. The storytelling, the action, such an epic tale of a story to tell with this movie. And I only wish that Zack Snyder could finish what he had, to continue his vision, continue his story, and be able to continue what he was going to do with the other movies for Justice League, or the other characters, like what he was going to do. I just really hope that we could have gotten that in the future, but sadly we're not. But I mean, that's how things go. But I'm glad that we at least got this one, and we got the Zack Snyder's vision of Justice League. I'm glad that we finally got this one, at least got this version of it. Next up on the list is going to be the recently released The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson. This was such a amazing Batman movie, amazing Batman story, especially with the detective side. We didn't really get the detective side of Batman too much in other movies, but this movie showed us what we were missing. And I'm glad that they did the detective side of Batman, and having the Batman character in this movie, and having this movie was amazing. It was epic, and I enjoyed every minute of it, seeing it in theaters and all that. And it's such an awesome movie. Definitely plan on seeing it again eventually. And honestly, this is probably might be one of my favorite Batman movies. It's gonna take some time to see if it stays on the list at this spot on the list and still remains one of my favorites. So that'll be time will tell if that stays there. But as of right now, the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves, is on the number two. Is at number two for me on Batman movies ranked as of right now. So time will tell if it stays at this spot. But as of right now, is in my opinion the second best Batman movie with everything that it showed us. Such an epic movie, awesome and amazing. But let's get on to the number one spot, and y'all already know the number one spot, in my opinion, is going to be The Dark Knight. This was such an amazing story that Christopher Nolan was able to tell. The sequel to the Dark Knight, sequel to Batman Begins, and second movie in the Dark Knight trilogy. We get an epic, amazing performance from Heath Ledger as Joker, and still remains one of the best Joker performances, in my opinion. And still, other people will say it's one of the best performances, and he even won an Oscar for it too. So that should tell you something. We give Christian Bale back as Batman, which some people will say is the definitive Batman, and being able to have these two clash together in the movie, they give us an amazing story and amazing performances in this movie. No, Christopher Nolan, the way he was able to direct this movie and tell us a story that was character driven, and just everything about this movie. Honestly, I enjoy this movie so much. I can't talk about it enough. Like, tell enough good things about this movie. Like, this is the definitive Batman movie for me. This is amazing. This movie is epic, and it still stands the test of time as being one of the best Batman movies, in my opinion. And honestly, I don't know if anything will be able to beat this. It's going to be very, very hard to beat this movie, because it still remains the best Batman movie, in my opinion, after all these years. And it's going to be hard to beat this. I would say that the Batman does come close. It's fairly close, I will say. And I could see an argument made for why The Batman with Robert Pattinson could be the best movie. But this is just my opinion. The Dark Knight still reigns supreme. In my opinion, still reigns supreme as the best Batman movie for me, personally. So that is why I put it on the top of the list. Alright, so I ran down all the Batman movies that came out, ranked them from worst to best. Let me know down in the comments below, what would your ranking be for all the Batman movies? Definitely would like to hear your thoughts on that. But that is going to do it for this video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Remember that I will have a few other Batman related ranking videos coming out soon after this one, so be on the lookout for that. But that's going to do it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Remember, if you want to be a part of Team Legendary, all you got to do is subscribe and turn notifications on so you know when I post another video. Hope you all have an awesome day, and remember, be legendary.